On Capitol Hill, lawmakers are calling for immediate action from social media companies to address this flood of violent online threats against law enforcement in the wake of that Mar-a-Lago search. And this is just one example of those alarming threats. According to the Washington Post, a Pennsylvania man charged with making threats of violence against the FBI posted this on Gab, quote, "Every single piece of expletive who works for the FBI in any capacity, from the director down to the janitor who cleans their expletive toilets, deserves to die. You've declared war on us, and now it's open season on you." In response to this letter from Congress, Gab posted in response on their website, in part, "We're considering the response of the House Oversight Committee," and went on to say, "We don't scream about how seriously we take public safety. We don't publicize it. We don't use it to make political statements. We do the work, try to be as responsible a corporate citizen as we can." Twitter also responded to our request for comment, saying, in part, "Our enforcement teams remain vigilant for violations of the Twitter rules, including threats and calls for violence. Our rules are enforced utilizing our range of enforcement options." We've reached out to the 6 other companies. We haven't heard back yet. So let me bring in one of the authors of this letter, California Congressman Khanna, who currently serves on House Oversight. You're the committee that sent the letters. Thanks very much for being here. And I just wonder, A, have you heard back, right? You sent it Friday. Have these companies responded? And more specifically, what do you want them to change?
We have not heard back, Poppy, but they should have a few days to respond. But here's the thing. It is illegal, even under our First Amendment, under Brandenburg, for someone to have speech that incites violence and that has an imminent threat of violence. You can't just say you're going to try to assassinate or kill law enforcement online. The problem is that some of these companies aren't monitoring that. They aren't taking it down. Frankly, Section 230 gives them too much leeway. They don't have a legal consequence. We want to make sure that they're actually taking down posts that are inciting violence.
You bring up 2 really important things, the First Amendment and Section 230. Given that Section 230 stands, which was written years ago and protected these social media companies essentially from any speech posted on their platforms that wasn't their own, given that that's still the law of the land, what can you do here?
Well, we can have accountability, but you're right. And look, this is not a wonky point. Here's the problem with Section 230 as it's written. You could have someone post on Facebook, on Twitter, on Gab, a post that threatens violence, that they did this in January 6th, that says, "I'm going to assassinate a specific person at a specific time." And currently under Section 230, these companies have no legal responsibility to take it down. Now, they do have a responsibility to live up to their terms of service, and many of them say that they take down threats under their terms of service. So we do have accountability to say, well, you've got to live up to what you're representing to consumers.
And to be fair here, and we welcome representatives from any of these 8 social media companies, come on the show tomorrow, any day, they often do take it down. But there's such a volume of this stuff, and we've seen how hard it is, no matter how many people you hire, billions of dollars, to get it all down. So, I mean, this is the reality of where we are, and people's lives are in danger. Let me change topics here and ask you about the search of the former president's Mar-a-Lago residence. Specifically, Congressman, because you've said, which I think is interesting, you said recently, I think lawmakers shouldn't say a lot about this. Let the process work. But I do want your response to what Texas Republican Congressman Dan Crenshaw said to my colleague Jake Tapper on this just yesterday.
I still haven't seen any evidence that that Trump was even asked to give these documents back. He's been cooperating with them on these issues for a while now, for months. And so why take it to this extreme extent? And I think that's why you're seeing so much backlash from Republicans. You're seeing everyone coalesce. It doesn't matter what side of the issue they're on with Trump. You've seen a lot coalesce around this one because it does seem unjust. And there does seem to be a long history of loss of credibility at the Department of Justice at the hands of Democrats. And I think people are rightfully frustrated about that.
What's your response specifically to this argument he's making?
Poppy, I believe that they need to follow the law, but I will say that Attorney General Garland and the Justice Department should be as transparent. And there is an obligation to get all of the information out there that they can when you have a former president involved. And so my view is get it out there. Get out there why this took place. Let's make sure that all the facts are out there. I have confidence that Attorney General Garland wouldn't have taken a step like this if he didn't think it was absolutely necessary. He understands the stakes, but I'm always for transparency. And if there are doubts that can be quelled, let's have everything get out there.
That is a really important point. And I just want to ask you specifically, Congressman, does that mean that you then disagree with the position that the DOJ has taken that none of the affidavit should be released publicly? Because normally that would never happen unless charges are filed, which they've not been filed in this case. So do you disagree with the DOJ position here, saying the public shouldn't see this right now?
I think it's too aggressive a position when you're dealing with a former president. My view is have more transparency, get out there what you're trying to do, why you're trying to hold him accountable. It seems like the Florida judge agrees with my perspective, and that's why he's called for a partial release. Don't release sensitive information. Don't release information about particular law enforcement individuals who were there, because that could put them in danger. But get as much out there as possible.
Just to be clear, and you might not have seen it because it came out in just the last few minutes, but there is this new order out this morning from that Florida judge, Judge Reinert, taking a slightly different position. We'll get into that in a moment and explain to people, but it's ultimately going to be up to that judge. Let me end by asking you about one of the strategies, Congressman, that has been used by some in the Democratic Party to try to win in the midterm elections. Over the weekend, the Democratic Congressional Campaign Committee Chair, Representative Sean Patrick Maloney, defended the DCCC's decision to spend money on these ads in some races across the country, propping up Democrats, their money, propping up extremist GOP candidates in these primaries, including election deniers. We saw what happened in Michigan as a result. Here's how he defended that move when asked by Chuck Todd.
My job is to win elections for the Democrats, and I take that seriously because the moral imperative is keeping the gavel out of the hands of Kevin McCarthy.
He's basically saying, at any cost. Do you agree with those tactics? Do you support them?
I totally reject them. I think they're abominable tactics. First of all, we should not be interfering in other primaries to try to pick more extreme candidates. I mean, what this country needs is for us to get together, come together, and have people who want to work to solve problems. Second, be careful what you wish for. I remember the time where the whole Democratic Party was cheering for Donald Trump to become the nominee in 2016. How did that work out? So it may also not be tactically smart. But this is what drives cynicism in politics. This is why 58% of Americans think our best days are behind us. This is why 70-some% think we're on the wrong track. We should totally reject that. And frankly, I'm embarrassed that the DCCC is doing that.
Wow. All right. Well, we appreciate your candor this morning. Congressman Khanna, thanks.
Thank you.